When my wife asked for a divorce the moment I returned from Alaska, I didn't beg or break down. I simply said, okay. The look of shock on her face was worth every painful second. She expected me to crumble like the unstable foundations I fix for a living. Instead, I stood firm while she scrambled to understand why her calculated betrayal didn't destroy me. 3 days later, her desperate text started. I made a mistake. Too late. I'd already discovered the hidden accounts she'd been planning for months. Some foundations can't be repaired once they're compromised. My name is Kyle Wells. I'm 39 years old. And until 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. As a geotechnical engineer specializing in earthquake-resistant foundations, I built my career on anticipating disaster. Ironic how I couldn't see the fractures in my own home. That Tuesday morning changed everything. I had just returned from a 3-month project in Alaska, developing foundation systems for a new pipeline. It was grueling work in brutal conditions, but I'd pulled it off. The company even gave me a substantial bonus for finishing ahead of schedule. I walked through her front door with a bottle of Diana's favorite wine and plans for a second honeymoon. Instead, I found her sitting at our kitchen table, eerily composed. "We need to talk, Kyle," Diana said, her voice flat, rehearsed. I set my bags down, still smiling. "I missed you too." She didn't smile back. "I want a divorce." 4 words. Simple, direct, devastating. Like a perfectly placed explosive charge. I felt something shift inside me, but externally, I remained still. 15 years of working in high-pressure environments had taught me one thing. Panic never helps. I pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Okay," I said calmly. "Can I ask why?" My reaction clearly wasn't what she expected. Diana blinked rapidly, her composure cracking slightly. "Okay, that's it." She leaned forward. "I just told you I want to end our marriage." I nodded slowly. "I heard you. I'm just trying to understand." "You're always gone," she said, frustration creeping into her voice. 3 months in Alaska this time. Before that, 6 weeks in California. We barely talk even when you're home. "I've been working to build our future," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the pressure building in my chest. "The promotion is coming through next month. Things will change." Diana shook her head. "I've heard that before. I can't do this anymore, Kyle. I've already talked to a lawyer." That detail hit differently. She hadn't just reached this decision. She'd been planning it, while I was working 12-hour days in sub-zero temperatures. I could have shouted, could have begged, but something in me refused to break. Instead, I stood up and poured myself a glass of water. "If that's what you want, I won't fight you on it," I said, surprising even myself with how calm I sounded. Diana stared at me, clearly thrown off balance by my reaction. She'd expected drama, tears, maybe even pleading. My composure seemed to anger her more than any emotional outburst would have. "The papers will be ready next week," she said, standing up abruptly. "I'm staying at my sister's tonight." She walked out, and I remained in our kitchen, alone with the bottle of wine I'd brought home. In that moment, as the front door slammed shut, I realized something important. I was still standing, and somehow, that felt like a victory. I didn't tell anyone about the divorce right away. Not my crew, not my brother Mark, not even my best friend Dave. It wasn't shame that kept me quiet, but a strange sense of clarity I needed to protect from outside opinions. The morning after Diana left, I drove to the office as usual. My team greeted me with congratulations on the Alaska project, unaware that my personal life had imploded. "The big boss wants to see you," said Jenna, my project coordinator. "Sounds like that promotion might be happening sooner than expected." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Great. I'll head up now." In Robert's office, surrounded by geological maps and core samples, I accepted the position of senior project director with a firm handshake and steady voice. A 20% raise, my own team, and first pick of projects. Everything I've been working toward. "We're thinking of sending you to Japan," Robert said. "Their seismic retrofitting program could use your expertise." "When would that be?" I asked. 3 weeks. 6-month assignment minimum. "Problem?" He raised an eyebrow. "None at all," I replied. "Perfect timing, actually." That evening, I returned to an empty house. Diana had been back while I was at work. More of her clothes were gone, along with some kitchen appliances and her grandmother's china. On the counter sat a folder labeled "Divorce Agreement Draft." Curious, I flipped through it. Standard division of assets. Nothing unexpected until I reached the financial section. She wanted half of my upcoming bonus and any raise I received within 6 months. I laughed quietly to myself. She'd known about the promotion possibility. Maybe even timed her exit for it. I poured myself a scotch and carried it to my home office. Inside the bottom drawer of my desk, beneath project blueprints, was a small black notebook. I opened it to the first empty page and began writing down everything I could remember from the past year. Diana's increasing absences on Thursdays, book club, password changes on her phone, weekend, work retreats, with no details. It hadn't registered then. I'd been too consumed with the Alaska project. But now the pattern was obvious. As I wrote, I felt strangely calm. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped fighting for Diana's attention. The man who would have done anything to save his marriage had quietly disappeared, replaced by someone more pragmatic. My phone buzzed with a text from Dave. Beer tomorrow? Heard you crushed the Alaska job. I stared at the message, considering how easy it would be to tell him everything. Instead, I replied, can't. Heading to office early. Rain check. I wasn't ready to make this real by saying it out loud. Once words leave your mouth, they exist in the world. And right now, I needed to focus on the seismic shift happening beneath my feet before I could explain it to anyone else. 3 days after Diana left, my phone buzzed with her message. Need to talk. Can we meet? I stared at those 7 words, feeling nothing but a strange detachment. The old Kyle would have jumped at the chance, rearranged his schedule, hoped for reconciliation. This new version of me simply texted back. I'm heading to the site in Oak Ridge. Can talk at 6. The Oak Ridge project was a new development built on questionable soil. I'd been called in to assess the foundation after reports of settling. It was straightforward work, the kind that kept my hands busy while my mind processed everything else. As I knelt in the dirt, testing soil density, my phone rang. Mark, my brother. Hey, stranger, he said. Mom said you haven't returned her calls. Been busy, I replied, jotting down measurements. Too busy for dinner tomorrow? Sarah's making her famous lasagna. I hesitated, knowing family dinner meant questions about Diana. Rain check. I'm swamped with the promotion paperwork. Promotion? Kyle, that's great. We should celebrate. Soon, I promised. How's Danny doing at baseball? The distraction worked. Mark launched into a story about my nephew's game, and I half listened while continuing my work. After hanging up, I realized I'd have to tell them eventually. Just not today. At 5:30, I finished at the site and drove to Riversong Cafe, a neutral territory Diana had suggested. She was already there, sitting at an outside table, sunglasses hiding her eyes despite the cloudy day. Thanks for meeting me, she said as I sat down. I nodded, waiting. This was her show. I found an apartment, she continued. I'll be moving my remaining things this weekend. Okay, I said. Do you need help with anything heavy? She frowned, removing her sunglasses. That's it. You're just fine with all this. I looked at her directly. What did you expect, Diana? That I'd fall apart? Beg you to reconsider. I expected you to at least ask why. Would your answer change anything? I kept my voice steady. Or would it just make you feel better about leaving? Her eyes widened slightly. You're different. No, I corrected her. I'm the same person I've always been. You just never paid enough attention to notice. The waiter came by. Diana ordered wine. I asked for water. There's something else, she said after the waiter left. The attorney suggested we list the house immediately. The market's good right now. I nodded, unsurprised. I'm keeping the house. Kyle, be reasonable. We both. I'll buy out your half. Fair market value. My tone left no room for negotiation. I built that foundation myself. I'm not leaving. She started to argue, then stopped, studying my face like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The man sitting across from her wasn't desperate for her approval anymore. I should go, she said finally. As she stood to leave, she hesitated. This isn't how I thought this would go. I almost asked what she meant. But watching her walk away, I realized I no longer needed her explanation to feel complete. The Japan offer became my focus. I threw myself into preparation, language refreshers, research on Tokyo's building codes, housing arrangements. Work had always been my refuge, and now it became my salvation. On Thursday, 1 week after Diana's bombshell, I met with the bank to discuss buying out her portion of the house. The numbers were steep, but manageable with my new salary. I'd have to postpone the custom truck I'd been eyeing, but the house was worth it. These divorce refinances are always tricky, the banker commented, especially with joint accounts. I frowned. What joint accounts? We closed those years ago. He tapped at his computer. You have one joint investment account still active. Opened 8 months ago. 8 months ago, I was in California for the seismic project. Diana had handled all the paperwork for our tax preparation around that time. Can you tell me the current balance? I asked, and not forming in my stomach. The banker turned his screen toward me. The number made my blood run cold. $127,000. Almost exactly the amount of my expected annual bonus and my portion of our savings. I maintained my composure as I left the bank, but inside, something hardened. This wasn't just about Diana wanting out. She'd been planning her exit strategy for months, methodically positioning herself. That evening, I canceled my dinner plans and drove to the Anchor, a bar where Dave and I occasionally met. I found him at our usual table. The prodigal engineer appears. Dave grinned. I was starting to think you'd forgotten how to socialize. I sat down heavily. Diana asked for a divorce. Dave's smile vanished. What? When did this happen? Last week. She was gone before I could set my bags down from Alaska. Jesus, Kyle. Why didn't you call me? He signaled for 2 beers. Needed to process it myself first, I admitted. But now I need your help. Anything. Diana opened a joint investment account without my knowledge. She's trying to claim half my bonus, and likely more. Dave's eyes narrowed. He wasn't just my friend. He was also a forensic accountant. Forward me your bank statements, he said, voice dropping. All of them, last 12 months. And Kyle, change every password you have. Tonight. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief. The ground had shifted beneath me, but I was finding my footing on this new terrain. I'd built earthquake-resistant structures my entire career. Now it was time to rebuild my own foundation, stronger, more resilient, and without the fault lines I've been ignoring for years. 2 weeks after discovering the hidden account, I received a call that changed everything. My sister-in-law Sarah's voice was tight with worry. Kyle, I'm sorry to bother you, but have you talked to Mark recently? Not since last week. What? He had chest pains at work yesterday. They've kept him at Memorial for observation. I was already grabbing my keys. I'm on my way. At the hospital, I found Mark looking pale but alert, Sarah hovering anxiously nearby. Their 10-year-old son Danny was slumped in a chair, absorbed in his handheld game. Minor cardiac event, Mark explained, downplaying it with a weak smile. Doc says I need to take it easy for a while. Sarah pulled me aside as a nurse came to check his vitals. He's being stubborn. The doctor said he needs at least 6 weeks off work, but he's worried about falling behind on the mortgage. I nodded, understanding immediately. Mark was a construction foreman. No work meant no pay. Don't worry about the money, I said firmly. I'll cover whatever you need. Sarah shook her head. Kyle, we couldn't. It's not a loan, I interrupted. It's family. Consider it done. Later, as I sat with Danny in the cafeteria, letting Sarah have some time alone with Mark, my phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Kyle, I've been thinking about us. I made a mistake. Can we talk? I stared at the message, feeling nothing but mild irritation at her timing. A month ago, those words would have sent my heart racing. Now they seem hollow, manipulative. Uncle Kyle. Danny's voice pulled me back. Are you okay? I pocketed my phone. I'm good, buddy. How's your game going? I'm stuck on level 6, he admitted. There's this lava pit I can't get past. Show me, I said, moving my chair closer to his. Diana's message could wait. This was what mattered. That evening, after ensuring Mark and his family had everything they needed, I finally replied to Diana, not interested in talking about us. If it's about the divorce, contact my lawyer. Her response came immediately. Please, Kyle. I know I messed up. I miss you. Instead of replying, I called Dave. How's the account investigation going? Found the smoking gun, he said. Diana transferred $43,000 to a personal account in February. There's more. Dinner tomorrow. Can't. I'm helping Mark's family. His heart's acting up. Need any help? I can bring food by. I felt a rush of gratitude for real friendship, the kind that offers concrete support, not just words. Actually, yes. Sarah could use a break from hospital food. After hanging up, I looked at Diana's last message again. 5 simple words. I know I messed up. Yet they captured nothing of what she'd actually done, the calculated planning, the financial deception, the precise timing of her exit. I deleted the conversation and turned my attention to the Japan preparation materials. Some foundations couldn't be repaired once they've been compromised. Sometimes you had to start completely new on solid ground. The confrontation happened at Mark's house, of all places. I was dropping off groceries and helping Danny with a science project when Diana's car pulled into the driveway. Sarah answered the door, confusion evident on her face. "Diana, this is unexpected. I need to speak with Kyle," Diana said, her voice carrying into the kitchen where I was showing Danny how to wire a simple circuit board. I stepped into the living room, keenly aware of Danny following curiously behind me. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "And how did you know where to find me?" Diana glanced at Sarah and Danny. "Can we talk privately? Whatever you have to say, you can say it here." My tone left no room for negotiation. She hesitated, then straightened her shoulders. "I made a terrible mistake, Kyle. I want to come home." The surreal nature of the moment wasn't lost on me. My soon-to-be ex-wife asking for reconciliation in my brother's living room, while his son watched wide-eyed. "No," I said simply. Diana blinked, clearly thrown by my directness. "Kyle, please." I was confused, stressed about work. I didn't realize what I was throwing away. "You didn't just ask for a divorce, Diana. You planned it for months. You had money. You timed it to maximize what you could take." Sarah inhaled sharply behind me. This was news to her. "That's not true," Diana protested, but her eyes flickered away, a tell I recognized from years of marriage. "Danny," I said, turning to my nephew, "why don't you go check if that solder is cooled?" After he reluctantly left, I faced Diana again. "Dave found the transfers. All of them. The account you opened in your mother's maiden name. The consultation with the divorce attorney 6 months ago." Color drained from her face. "I can explain. I'm not interested in explanations. The divorce proceeds as planned. If you contact me again about anything other than legal matters, I'll instruct my attorney to push for financial misconduct charges." "You wouldn't," she whispered. "The Kyle you knew wouldn't." I corrected her. "But I'm not that man anymore." As she left, Sarah placed a gentle hand on my arm. "You okay?" I watched Diana's car pull away. Better than I've been in years, actually. That evening, I called Robert to confirm my acceptance of the Japan assignment. 6 months abroad would give me distance from the divorce proceedings and a fresh start professionally. "Glad to hear it," Robert said. "Team's excited to have you lead this one. When can you fly out for the preliminary site inspection?" "How's next week sound?" As I hung up, I realized I was smiling. Not because I'd won against Diana. This wasn't about winning. It was about finally standing firmly on ground I could trust. My work, my family, and most importantly, myself. Tokyo greeted me with a rainstorm and endless bureaucracy. The first week was a blur of meetings, site inspections, and introductions to the Japanese engineering team. Their approach to earthquake resistance fascinated me, less focused on rigid strength and more on flexibility and energy dissipation. Wilson Tanaka, the lead Japanese engineer, handed me an umbrella as we prepared to visit the construction site. "You have adapted quickly to our methods." I appreciated the compliment. "Your techniques are brilliant. I'm here to learn as much as to teach." The Shibuya development was ambitious, a 30-story residential tower on reclaimed land. My job was to ensure the foundation could withstand the region's notorious seismic activity. That evening, as I reviewed soil composition reports in my small but efficient apartment, my phone rang with Dave's number. "How's Japan?" he asked when I answered. "Challenging. Rewarding. Exactly what I needed." "Good to hear. Listen, I've got news about Diana." I braced myself. "Go ahead." "Her lawyer reached out to yours with a settlement offer. She's dropping all claims to your bonus and pension." I frowned. "What's the catch?" "That's the thing. There doesn't seem to be one. She's requested a clean break, minimal asset division, expedited timeline." This wasn't the Diana I'd come to expect. "Did something happen?" "Well," Dave hesitated. "Rumor has it her book club friend Jeremy got transferred to Phoenix. Suddenly she's in a hurry to wrap things up." The pieces clicked into place. Diana's attempts at reconciliation hadn't been about us. They'd been about convenience, about her plans falling through. "Tell my lawyer to proceed, but verify everything twice." After hanging up, I stood at my window, watching Tokyo's lights glimmer through the rain. I felt no triumph, no vindication, just relief that this chapter was closing without further battle. The next morning, I threw myself into the Shibuya project with renewed focus. The team responded to my energy, and by week's end, we'd resolved a critical design flaw that had been troubling them for months. "Well, San," Tanaka said as we celebrated with after-work drinks, "you see problems differently. It is valuable. Sometimes you need distance to gain clarity," I replied, thinking about more than just engineering. As sake warmed my system, I realized something important. I was happy, not despite being thousands of miles from my old life, but because of it. The foundation I was building wasn't just for the Shibuya Tower. It was for myself, reinforced with lessons learned and strong enough to support whatever came next. 3 months into my Japan assignment, Robert called with unexpected news. "The Nakamura Group is impressed with your work," he said. "They've requested you head the seismic division for their international projects." I sat up straighter. "That's a 2-year commitment minimum. At triple your current salary, plus equity. They're serious, Kyle. This could set you up for life." I promised to consider it, then spent the evening walking Tokyo's streets, letting the opportunity sink in. A permanent move to Japan hadn't been in my plans, but plans had proven unreliable lately. The next morning, an email arrived from Mark with photos of Danny's baseball championship. My nephew beamed from home plate, trophy clutched high. The sight pulled something tight in my chest, a reminder of what I'd be giving up by staying in Japan. I called Mark that evening, despite the time difference. "Hey stranger," he answered. "How's the land of the rising sun?" "Good. Different. How's the heart?" "Back to normal. Doc says it was a wake-up call, not a death sentence." He paused. "Sarah and Danny miss you. So do I. I miss you guys too." I took a deep breath. "I've been offered a permanent position here." Mark whistled. "Impressive. You taking it?" "Still deciding." "How's everything else?" His tone shifted. "Diana stopped by last week. She wanted to drop off some old family photos she thought you might want." I tensed. "What did she say?" "Not much. She seemed different, subdued. Sarah thinks she's genuinely sorry." I'd learned to distrust both Diana's remorse and my own judgment where she was concerned. "The divorce was finalized yesterday," I said. "It's officially over. How do you feel about that?" I considered the question honestly. Relieved, ready to move forward. Forward in Japan or forward here? That was the question, wasn't it? The prestigious position offered professional advancement beyond my expectations, but something kept pulling me back to the foundations I'd already laid. That weekend, I visited Kyoto's ancient temples, marveling at structures that had withstood centuries of earthquakes. Their secret wasn't just technical brilliance. It was their connection to the ground beneath them, their harmony with natural forces rather than resistance. On the train back to Tokyo, I made my decision. The following morning, I called Robert. "I'm honored by the Nakamura offer," I began, "but I need to decline. Mind if I ask why?" "This is a career-defining opportunity." "Family," I said simply. "I need to go home." As I hung up, an email notification appeared on my screen, a message from my real estate agent back home. She'd found a perfect property, 5 acres outside town with development potential. Building my own home from the ground up. There was a symmetry to that I couldn't ignore. I booked a flight home, certain of my foundation for the first time in years. 1 year after returning from Japan, I stood on my property, watching concrete pour into the foundation forms of my new house. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the 5 acres I now owned outright, land that would never be subject to division or dispute. "Looking good, Uncle Kyle." Danny called from where he was helping the crew smooth a section of concrete. At 11, he was eager to learn everything about construction, and I was happy to teach him. "Keep that edge straight," I instructed, smiling at his concentration. "A good foundation determines everything that comes after." Mark walked up beside me, handing me a coffee. "You sound like Dad." I accepted the compliment with a nod. Our father had been a carpenter with an almost religious respect for doing things right the first time. "How's Sarah feeling about the baby?" "Excited. Nervous. Doctor says everything looks perfect for a girl this time." He glanced sideways at me. "You know, this place has plenty of room for a family of your own someday." I didn't respond immediately, watching the concrete slowly fill the complex form I designed. The foundation included special vibration dampening features and reinforced sections. Over-engineered, perhaps, but I'd learned the value of starting from unshakable ground. One step at a time, I finally replied. For now, I'm just enjoying the build. After Mark left to take Danny to baseball practice, I walked the perimeter of what would become my home. The design was my own, modern but warm, with large windows facing east to catch the sunrise. Single-story, open concept, with a separate workshop where I could develop my ideas for new building methods. My phone buzzed with a text from Tanaka. Well-san, design approved by committee. Tokyo project proceeding with your innovations. I smiled at the news. Though I'd declined the permanent position in Japan, I'd maintained a consulting relationship with the Nakamura Group. My foundation system for earthquake resistance was being implemented in buildings across the Pacific Rim, earning me both professional recognition and substantial royalties. Later that afternoon, Dave stopped by the construction site with blueprints for his new vacation cabin. The mighty builder in his natural habitat, he joked, surveying the progress. Just a guy who knows what he wants. I corrected him, unrolling his plans on the makeshift table. As we discussed his cabin design, his expression turned more serious. Ran into Diana at the grocery store yesterday. I continued studying the blueprints, feeling nothing but mild curiosity. How'd that go? Awkward. She asked about you. What did you tell her? That you're building a house and a consulting business, and seem happier than I've seen you in years. Dave hesitated. She's moving to Phoenix next month. Seemed like she wanted me to relay that information. I nodded, making a notation on his plans to improve the support beams. I wish her well, and I meant it. The anger had faded months ago, replaced by a simple recognition that we had been wrong for each other in fundamental ways. The divorce hadn't broken me. It had revealed me. You're a better man than I would be, Dave commented. Not better, I disagreed. Just focused on building something that lasts. 18 months after Diana asked for a divorce, I hosted Thanksgiving dinner in my completed home. The dining table, built by my own hands from locally harvested oak, seated 12 comfortably. Mark, Sarah, and Danny, their new baby girl Emily, my parents, Dave and his new girlfriend, and a few close colleagues from the engineering firm. To Kyle, my father raised his glass, for giving us this beautiful place to gather, and for showing us all what resilience truly means. The toast touched me more than I expected. I looked around at the faces of those who had stood by me, who had never asked more of me than I could give, who valued me for exactly who I was. To family, I amended. The foundation that never fails. After dinner, as everyone moved to the living room for coffee, my mother pulled me aside. I ran into Diana's mother at the charity auction last week, she said quietly. She mentioned Diana's engagement. I nodded, surprised by my genuine reaction. That's good. I hope she's happy. My mother studied my face carefully. You've changed, Kyle. A year ago, you wouldn't have meant that. A year ago, I was still rebuilding, I acknowledged. Now I'm just living. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began departing, Danny approached me with his school science project, a model demonstrating various foundation types and their resistance to simulated earthquakes. Will you help me test it tomorrow? He asked eagerly. Absolutely, I promised. The best way to understand something is to try to break it. After everyone had gone, I sat alone on my back deck, watching stars appear in the clear November sky. The property was peaceful, the house settling around me with the comfortable sounds of a well-built structure. My phone chimed with an email notification. Robert, with another consulting offer, this time in New Zealand. 6 months ago, I might have jumped at the opportunity to throw myself into work again. Now I found myself considering it more carefully, weighing what I would gain against what I would leave behind. I thought about Diana, engaged and starting over. I thought about Mark and Sarah, raising their children with the steady commitment I'd always admired. I thought about the young engineer at my firm who had nervously asked me to mentor her, seeing something in me worth learning from. In the end, the question wasn't whether I should keep building my career or focus on personal relationships. The strongest structures incorporated both technical excellence and human connection, professional achievement, and family bonds. I typed a measured response to Robert, suggesting a shorter consulting arrangement that wouldn't require relocation. Then I texted Sarah to confirm Sunday dinner at their place. As I headed to bed, I paused in the hallway, looking at the framed blueprint of my house, the first thing I'd hung on these walls. The foundation layer was highlighted in blue, a complex network of supports designed to withstand whatever forces might try to shake it. I ran my hand along the solid wall beside me, feeling the strength beneath the surface. The metaphor wasn't lost on me, but it no longer felt like something I needed to explain or justify. I simply knew, with absolute certainty, that I was standing exactly where I belonged, on ground entirely my own.